I dare say there is no secular or atheistic explanation for what I'm going to share with you.
There's certainly no sensible one.
This secret code only makes sense in the Christian worldview.
Okay then, tell us about this wonderful secret code.
And so we're going to talk about a particular set that's called the Mandelbrot Set.
Geez, dumbass, that's not secret, nor is it a code. It's an equation, and spoiler alert, it does not mean what you think it does. Let me just summarize the first 15 minutes or so of this 38-minute goof fest. First, he says that National Treasure is something other than the embarrassingly dumb movie it is. Then he talks about how math is great because numbers are something. Eventually, he gets to the Mandelbrot Set. Now, I'm sure you've all seen it before, so I'll just give a quick summary, and this is better and less misleading than the long-winded dumbosity he spews. So there's this equation. You solve for a particular complex number. After you do that, you take the result and feed it back in again, and you keep doing that over and over again. It's mathematically proven that one of only two things will happen. It'll either stay less than 2 no matter how long you do it, or if at any point it gets greater than or equal to 2, it escapes to infinity. If it doesn't ever escape, it's part of the set. So what you do is run it to, say, 10,000 iterations. If it hasn't escaped by then, you color it in black. Otherwise, the color is based on how many iterations it takes to become 2 or larger. So it's not certain that the black area is part of the set. Maybe if you ran it to 10,001 iterations, a number would start to escape. The more iterations you run, the greater the detail. But to do it definitively would take an infinite number of iterations and therefore an infinite amount of time. This is a prominent example of chaos theory. Around the boundary of the image as it's typically rendered, it's pretty ordered. Not much is going on. But as you get closer and closer to the set boundary, interesting things happen as the numbers get pulled one way and another. Tiny variations can have an astounding effect on the result. And by the way, the set can be rendered in more than 2 dimensions. This is basically all you need to know for the sake of this video, but if you want to know more, I'm linking to a couple of number file videos that explain it way better than this bozo does.
What's it going to look like? Well, you have the computer run through thousands and thousands of points. You have the computer check each one of those numbers, and a pattern emerges, and the pattern looks like this. It's really interesting and unexpected. Nobody was expecting that.
This isn't true at all. It's all based on the work of Pierre Fatou and Gaston Julia at the beginning of the 20th century. Combine that with the theory of general Kleinian groups as described by Felix Klein and Henri Poincaré in 1883, and you get this fractal, first described and drawn in 1978, basically as ASCII art by Robert W. Brooks and Peter Metelsky. Benoit Mandelbrot did the first computerized visualization of it 2 years later. So yeah, he knew basically what it was going to look like. But as we'll see, there's a reason why he has to lie and make it seem like it was so amazingly unexpected and out of the blue. Really, he's just talking as if this equation was lying around somewhere waiting to be discovered, as opposed to being developed specifically for this purpose. He talks about it for a while in the manner of a third grader, and even says stupid crap like this.
So somehow the Mandelbrot set knows how to count. It's kind of remarkable. And then on the other side, you have the odds and the evens. You have all the numbers there in terms of the number of branches.
Yeah, who would have thought that an equation based on a numeric sequence would have a numeric sequence in its result? How astounding.
What causes the beauty in fractals?
Humans do. Beauty is something humans observe subjectively. It has no meaning outside human perspective.
And I'll have several possibilities. Could it be the man-made color scheme?
Yeah. Those colors aren't actually in the math. They're just arbitrarily applied. You're just assigning colors to certain numbers of iterations. That's just how you visualize it. It has nothing to do with the set itself.
But let me give you some examples of these. Snowflakes. Snowflakes have a fractal quality to them. They have that six-fold symmetry. You zoom in, you still get six-fold symmetry. You zoom in, you get six-fold symmetry.
It just gets worse and worse. He's marveling at a crystal structure as if it's something we don't understand at all. But we know how these form and why they have this shape. And by the way, the pictures they show you in school of these oh-so-perfect snowflakes, hate to break it to ya, but they're cherry-picked. Most snowflakes are misshapen and imperfect. Half an hour in, and we still haven't gotten to why all of this is an atheist's nightmare. I mean, we know it's just going to be another watchmaker's argument, but just get there already.
Ferns are fractal. Because you see, ferns have a stem. I even found a fractal broccoli. Coastlines are often fractal. Mountaintops are fractal. The way lightning branches is fractal.
Just giving you a little taste of all of it there.
How is it that conceptual things that exist only in the mind also occur in the physical universe?
Well, first of all, the mind itself occurs in the physical universe, so it's not all that surprising. Second, isn't it funny that it used to be that God was supposed to be perfect, and so he made spheres, and then we found out the planets and moons weren't really spheres? Yeah, I guess we've just moved on to the next thing. Here's a hint, though. You don't need a perfect mathematical equation to generate these branching structures. Just do it randomly. Start with a seed, branch it out, set a probability to whether or not it branches from there, make a random number and branch if it does, and keep doing that. You'll find these exact same patterns showing up.
How is it that math, which is conceptual, you find these shapes, and then in nature, which is physical, you find the same kinds of shapes? Why is that?
I don't even know how to formulate an answer to a question so moronic. It's like asking, why do planets orbit in ellipses when ellipses are a concept in mathematics? Because that's how things work. Even though math is completely abstract, we came up with it to explain and predict what we see in the real world. I have 2 apples. I get 2 more apples. I now have 4 apples. 2 plus 2 equals 4. Geez, does this guy not even remember kindergarten? And what do we do, by the way, when it turns out that nature doesn't work by the math we took so long to create? We change the math. According to Newton, the gravitational formula is F equals G times M1 times M2 over R squared. But according to Einstein, it's G mu upsilon plus little g mu upsilon lambda equals 8 pi G over C to the 4th times T mu upsilon. We learned more about how gravity works, so we changed the math.
And a skeptic might say this. He says, well, the physical universe obeys mathematical laws. So it stands to reason if something can occur in math, it can occur in the physical world because the physical world obeys math. Okay, I'll grant that. But then I'm going to have to ask, why does the physical universe obey mathematical laws? And that is a stumper.
No, it isn't, you smug ignoramus. We invented the mathematical laws to explain the universe. And as I just pointed out, the universe doesn't always obey them because sometimes we get the math wrong. I mean, seriously, just look at this guy's pompous, self-satisfied expression. He's so proud of himself. He really thinks he's delivered some amazing knockdown point. And all he's done is show how stupidly ignorant he is. I say that this picture should accompany any article on the Dunning-Kruger effect, because it shows it perfectly.
God thinks mathematically. So it stands to reason the physical universe will obey mathematical laws, because God upholds all things by the word of his power.
And where are you getting this idea that God thinks mathematically? Because that's not in the Bible anywhere. You're just asserting it because you need that assertion for your conclusion. Whatever we observe the universe to be, you just assert that God thinks that way. Why did he design snowflakes with 6 points instead of 7? Because God just thinks that way. From the Bible, we see that God isn't even self-consistent from one book to another or even within the same book. But math has to be consistent. However, God thinks it's not mathematically. So stop shoving in assertions to try and win. It just doesn't work that way.
But I submit the secular worldview cannot answer that. They can't explain the properties of laws of mathematics, why they are conceptual, universal, abstract, invariant, exceptionless.
Because they aren't! I just showed that. We've had to modify the equation for gravity at least twice, and we know we'll have to do it again once we figure out quantum gravity. These mathematical laws just represent our best estimates of how we observe the universe to work at the time. That's it.
But it is exactly what the Christian would expect. It's exactly what we'd expect.
Then why didn't you expect it? Why, after thousands of years of Christianity, did you never come up with fractals? Why was your thinking only ever as good as, and usually not anywhere near as good as, the best scientific explanation of the time? Seriously, look at Thomas Aquinas. His proofs of God are all based on Aristotelian physics.
And the reason we're able to do science is because God has graciously given us access to some of his thoughts.
Well, then why do we keep getting it wrong? Why do we have to keep doing new experiments and refining everything and sometimes even throwing it out completely? I mean, we could seriously use his input on the whole quantum gravity thing. Why doesn't he enlighten us on the Navier-Stokes equations or the P versus NP problem? Why don't you ask him for the solution to the Riemann hypothesis? Has he got a unified field theory he wants to share with us? Your concept is completely unfalsifiable, because no matter how the universe ends up being set up, you could just say, God thinks that way. If you lived in Aquinas' day, you'd say that God thinks in Aristotelian physics. If this had been 1800, you would have said Newtonian. 80 years ago, you would have said Einsteinian. Now you're saying he thinks fractally. And whatever the next equation is we'll discover to describe the universe, God will just think that way too. There's no possible observation that could falsify it. It can explain anything, which means it explains nothing. Let me put the Mandelbrot function up again. Here we are, an equation 1 inch long that results in that chaotic beauty. Emergence of complexity from simplicity, exactly what religious nutbars have been telling us was impossible. But now he wants to say it's because of God somehow. Well, where's God in that function? Unless you can show me which variable is God, there's nothing to talk about. So thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, leave a comment, and go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do. And check out all the great content here, like this video selected just for you.